June 7, 1944. Normandy, France. The hedgerow ahead stood silent. Sergeant Harry Furness pressed his cheek against the wooden stock of his Lee Enfield. 600 yards distant, through the number 32 scope, a German officer stepped from a staff car. The wind whispered left to right. Furness adjusted, controlled his breathing, squeezed. The officer fell. Then the world erupted. Mortar, artillery. 88mm guns saturating the position where he'd fired. But Furness was already gone, following the doctrine drilled into him through 4 weeks of exhaustive training fire. Observe, extract. The Germans expended hundreds of shells hitting empty ground. Before we continue, if you're enjoying these untold stories from World War II, hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss an episode. And drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. We love hearing from our community around the world, from Texas to Tokyo, Manchester to Melbourne. One shot, one kill, one vanished ghost. The Germans had just encountered something fundamentally different from the Soviet snipers. They'd grown accustomed to on the Eastern Front, not mass-produced marksmen flooding the battlefield with numbers, not hastily trained soldiers given scoped rifles and basic instruction. This was something the Red Army never created: an elite specialist, rigorously selected from hundreds of volunteers, trained for weeks in every aspect of the deadly craft, equipped with perhaps the finest sniper rifle of the war. And in that moment, as their shells found nothing but mud, the Germans realized they weren't fighting Soviet doctrine anymore. They were fighting British professionalism. And the difference would prove lethal. The philosophy took root 28 years earlier in the trenches of the Great War. August 1916, Lingham, northern France. A big game hunter named Hesketh, Vernon Hesketh Pritchard, watched British soldiers die daily to German snipers. Officers dismissed sniping as ungentlemanly. Soldiers had no training in counter-sniper work. Men fell from shots they never saw coming. The Germans had established dominance, selecting men with hunting experience, equipping them with quality optics, training them systematically. Britain had nothing comparable. Until Hesketh Pritchard changed everything. He founded the first Army School of Sniping, Observation, and Scouting. Not basic marksmanship, not a quick course. Comprehensive specialist training that created true professionals. His curriculum covered zeroing rifles for accuracy, judging distance precisely, camouflage and concealment, stalking to approach undetected. He pioneered observation techniques using spotting scopes. He developed working in pairs, one-man spotting while the other shot. He created dummy head systems to draw enemy fire and reveal positions. The results stunned Allied command. By 1916, his school produced snipers at 3 times the rate of any other Allied training facility. More importantly, these men saved lives. Conservative estimates suggest Hesketh Pritchard's program saved 3,500 Allied lives through effective counter-sniper operations. He established a doctrine that would define British sniping for generations: quality over quantity, thorough training over hasty deployment, professional excellence over mass production. His book, Sniping in France, published in 1920, became the foundation text. British snipers would carry these lessons forward, but between 1918 and 1939, military authorities made a catastrophic assumption that sniping was only a phenomenon of trench warfare, unlikely to occur again. Britain largely abandoned systematic sniper training. The expertise built so carefully was allowed to decay. Then came Dunkirk. May 26 to June 4, 1940. Over 300,000 British and French troops evacuated from the beaches. A tactical masterpiece of withdrawal, but the lessons learned cut deep. German snipers had been devastatingly effective. They slowed movements, created casualties, forced caution and delay at critical moments. After Dunkirk, Britain faced harsh reality. The sniper capability had to be rebuilt from scratch. But this rebuilding would be done the British way, not with hasty mass training, not with lowered standards to increase numbers. Instead, Britain returned to Hesketh Pritchard's philosophy: create elite specialists through rigorous selection and exhaustive training. The selection process alone separated British snipers from mass-produced marksmen. First requirement: volunteers only. No conscription into sniper roles. Every man had to choose this dangerous specialty. Second, demonstrated marksmanship excellence. Only the top rifle shots from each battalion were considered men who consistently achieved the highest scores on the range. Third, the right temperament, patience, mental stability, ability to remain motionless for hours, capacity to work alone in no man's land. These psychological factors mattered as much as shooting skill. Fourth, fieldcraft ability. Preference went to countrymen, gamekeepers, deer-stalkersmen who understood how to move through terrain without disturbing it, who could read the land instinctively. Finally, physical fitness. Snipers had to crawl for hours, lie in uncomfortable positions, extract rapidly when compromised. This selection weeded out 95% of volunteers. Only the exceptional proceeded to training. And the training was extraordinary. British sniper schools operated at Bisley Camp in Surrey, the School of Musketry at Hythe in Kent, the Infantry Battle School at Brecon in Wales. Courses lasted 2 to 4 weeks. Compare this to Soviet training: abbreviated basic instruction, then attachment to veterans for on-the-job learning. At Stalingrad, Soviet novice snipers had an average life expectancy of 2 weeks. British training left nothing to chance. Week 1 focused on rifle mastery, not just firing, accurately understanding the weapon intimately. Students learned to zero their rifles to their individual eye and shooting style. They practiced grouping shots at 100 yards until they could consistently place 7 rounds in a 5-inch circle, then 200 yards, then 400, where they had to place 6 of 7 shots in a 10-inch circle, then 600, finally 800, pushing the effective range of their equipment. They learned to calculate wind drift, temperature effects on trajectory, how atmospheric pressure changed point of impact, how to estimate range using multiple methods. But technical marksmanship was only the beginning. Week 2 covered observation, the skill that often mattered more than shooting. Students learned systematic scanning patterns, how to use 7-power binoculars effectively, how to operate the Scout Regiment telescope for long-range spotting. They practiced identifying targets at extreme distances, distinguishing enemy uniforms from civilian clothes at 600 yards, reading insignia to determine enemy unit identity. Most critically, they learned patience. To watch a position for hours, waiting for a single fleeting target. To resist the temptation to fire at marginal opportunities. To wait for the perfect shot rather than reveal their position prematurely. The wind carried the scent of wet earth and cordite across the training grounds. Instructors watched through binoculars as students lay motionless in the grass, waiting, learning the hunter's discipline. Week 3 introduced Fieldcraft, the art of becoming invisible. Students learned camouflage construction, not just wearing mottled clothing, creating ghillie suits from hessian and natural materials that broke up the human outline completely, understanding how light and shadow revealed or concealed positions. Stalking exercises pushed students to their limits. Instructors positioned themselves with binoculars overlooking open ground. Students had to crawl hundreds of yards, get within range, and take a shot without being spotted. If the instructor saw any movement, the student failed. Many failed repeatedly. The exercises continued until students could move across supposedly open ground while remaining completely invisible to observers who knew they were coming. They learned movement, discipline, how to move one limb at a time, how to use dead ground, how to select routes that offered natural concealment, how to time movements with distractions like artillery or aircraft. Week 4 covered counter-sniper work, the most dangerous specialty. Students studied enemy sniper tactics, likely position selection, common mistakes that revealed positions, how to identify muzzle flash, how to triangulate shots. They learned to use dummy heads to draw fire, the dummy positioned to look like a careless soldier. When the enemy sniper fired, British snipers would mark the shot direction and search for the position. They practiced patience in counter-sniper duels, waiting hours or even days for an enemy sniper to make a single mistake. One moment of carelessness, one glimpse of scope glint, one slight movement. And they learned the bitter mathematics: if you spot the enemy sniper first, but miss your shot, you will almost certainly die. Counter-sniper engagements were first-shot kills or fatal failures. Only after completing this exhaustive training did students return to their battalions as qualified snipers. But even then, the learning continued. The equipment matched the philosophy. The Lee-Enfield No. 4 Mark 1T was perhaps the finest sniper rifle of the Second World War. Not because of innovative features, not because of advanced technology, but because of meticulous construction and proven reliability. The rifle began as a standard number for Mark I. These rifles were tested at the factory for exceptional accuracy. Only rifles that demonstrated superior precision were selected for sniper conversion. The conversion added a wooden cheek piece to position the shooter's eye at the correct height for the scope. A mounting system was fitted to accept the No. 32 telescopic sight. Then the rifle was test-fired extensively. The accuracy standard was uncompromising. 7 shots out of 7 had to fall within a 5-inch circle at 200 yards. 6 shots out of 7 had to fall within a 10-inch circle at 400 yards. Rifles that failed were returned to standard infantry service. Over 20,000 No. 4T rifles were produced during the war. Holland, the prestigious gunmaker, converted approximately 21,000 rifles between 1942 and 1946. These craftsmen worked 7 days per week, producing 5 converted rifles daily. The rifle maintained its zero under rigorous combat conditions. British snipers could crawl through mud, ford rivers, drop the rifle when taking cover, then pick it up knowing the first shot would hit exactly where they aimed. German snipers using carabiner 9.8K rifles often complained about losing zero after rough handling. Soviet snipers using Mosin-Nagant rifles faced similar issues. The No. 32's telescopic sight matched the rifle's quality. 3.5 times magnification was modest compared to German 6-power scopes. But British doctrine emphasized field of view over magnification. The wider view helped locate targets and maintain situational awareness. The scope mounted to the left side of the rifle rather than directly over the bore. This complicated shooting through loopholes. But it allowed the sniper to load the magazine without removing his cheek from the stock. Faster reloading in combat situations. British snipers carried additional equipment that completed their effectiveness. 7-power binoculars for observation. The Scout Regiment telescope for long-range spotting. Ghillie suits or capes for camouflage. Hessian scrim to break up outlines. Face veils in green and brown mesh. Personal weapons included a .38 pistol and Fairburn Sykes fighting knife. This combination of selection, training, organization, and equipment created a sniper force of extraordinary effectiveness. The statistics prove it. British snipers achieved kill ratios often averaging roughly 1.3 to 1.5 shots per kill. Compare this to regular infantry, who expended tens of thousands of rounds per enemy casualty. Simple mathematics reveals the extraordinary efficiency. British snipers were approximately 10,000 to 20,000 times more ammunition efficient than regular infantry. One British sniper section of 8 men could achieve what an entire infantry company of 120 men could not. The proof would come on battlefields across Europe, North Africa, and Italy. The Bocage country beyond Normandy offered German defenders perfect sniper terrain. Ancient hedgerows created natural fortifications. German snipers inflicted steady casualties on advancing forces. But British snipers like Furness understood this terrain. After killing the officer at 600 yards, Furness resumed operations. Days later, he spotted a German sniper at 400 meters. He observed for hours, waiting for a mistake. Finally, the German moved slightly. Furness fired. The German fell. Furness immediately went forward to claim the G43 rifle as trophy. This aggressive follow-up was characteristic of British confidence. They recovered weapons as proof. On another occasion, Furness killed a dispatch rider and retrieved his intelligence satchel. His closest call came using a German tank as cover, walking beside it undetected. When it stopped, he was caught by infantry with an MG42. The burst hit his boot heel, shooting it off. But Furness survived. The sound of the MG42, that terrifying ripping noise code, splinters flew. Then silence. Furness escaped. His career continued through France, Holland, Germany. He preferred working alone. When war ended, he was the last surviving British sniper who landed on D-Day. His legacy demonstrates what British training produced, not just a good shot, a complete hunter. But the most remarkable achievement came from Sergeant Alfred Clive Holm of the 23rd Battalion, 2nd New Zealand Expeditionary Force. The Battle of Crete, May 1941. German paratroopers dropped across Crete in the largest airborne invasion ever attempted. German doctrine emphasized snipers to eliminate officers. Holm turned their doctrine against them. Over 8 days from May 20th to 28th, Holm was credited with killing approximately 30 German snipers. He used captured equipment to deceive enemies. After killing his first German sniper, Holm took the man's camouflage and rifle. He wore German equipment while stalking positions. German snipers would see what appeared to be their own. They'd relax their guard. That moment was fatal. On May 28th, while stalking his 34th sniper, Holm was wounded in the shoulder. Despite his wound, he continued fighting. He bayoneted a German sentry guarding prisoners. Then he charged a mortar crew at Stylo's wounded. Alone, he broke up their position through aggression. For these actions, Holm received the Victoria Cross. The citation noted his exceptional counter-sniper work eliminating approximately 30 enemy specialists. Each one a trained German. Each one a threat removed permanently. Behind those formal words lay 8 days of patient hunting. 8 days of crawling through rocky terrain. 8 days of turning German tactics against themselves. No other Allied sniper achieved comparable counter-sniper success in a single campaign. This was British sniper training in action. Italy provided ideal terrain for British. Operations Monte Cassino from January to May 1944 showed their effectiveness. German 1st Parachute Division held the monastery atop a 1,700-foot hill. German snipers inflicted steady casualties. The ruins provided endless hiding spots. But when British snipers established positions, they dominated. Captain Shore documented one engagement near the Garigano River. British snipers watched where Germans changed sentries hourly. At first, Germans were cautious. British snipers showed restraint. They waited for complacency. Later, 6 Germans exposed themselves. 4 British snipers were positioned. Each selected a target. They fired simultaneously. 3 fell. The 4th was wounded. Before survivors reacted, British snipers had extracted. Patient observation, optimal opportunities. Disciplined fire control, coordinated action, immediate extraction. The cold mathematics for shooters, 4 shots, 3 kills, 0 British casualties revealed what training made. The contrast with Soviet approach could not be starker. The Soviet Union trained 428,000 individuals in sniper operations during the war. Britain trained thousands at most a difference of 2 orders of magnitude. Soviet snipers were embedded at squad level throughout the Red Army. British snipers operated as battalion specialists. Soviet training was abbreviated. Basic instruction, then on-the-job learning. British training lasted weeks. Soviet snipers were used in conventional combat roles. British snipers were dedicated specialists. Soviet doctrine emphasized mass deployment and attrition. British doctrine emphasized selective targeting and efficiency. Both achieved results in their contexts. Soviet numbers overwhelmed German forces on the Eastern Front. The sheer quantity created omnipresent threat. But comparing individual effectiveness, training quality, equipment superiority, British snipers were superior. A British sniper with his No. 4T and months of training was more effective than a Soviet sniper with a Mosin-Nagant and 2 weeks instruction. The Soviet advantage came from numbers. Deploy 400,000 mediocre snipers, and the cumulative effect is enormous. Deploy a few thousand excellent snipers, and the effect is proportionally smaller, even if individually superior. This distinction matters. Different situations demand different approaches. The Soviets faced existential threat. Soviets' response was total mobilization, train everyone, accept high casualties, win through attrition. Britain faced different circumstances. After Dunkirk, forces were limited. Manpower was constrained. British response was professional specialization. Identify the best, train them thoroughly, deploy them selectively. Both strategies were rational. But for measuring pure quality, British superiority is clear. March 24, 1945. Operation Varsity, the Rhine Crossing. The 6th Airborne Division conducted the largest single-lift daylight airborne operation. 7,200 British paratroopers deployed with sniper sections integrated. They suffered severe casualties from anti-aircraft fire, but they secured objectives, and snipers immediately began counter-sniper work. Throughout Northwest Europe, from D-Day to V-Day, British snipers maintained professional edge. They adapted to changing terrain. Urban warfare in Caen, Bocage in Normandy, open country toward Falaise, forest fighting, river crossings, city fighting in Germany. Every environment demanded different techniques. British training prepared snipers for this variety. Soviet snipers trained primarily for Eastern Front conditions. British snipers operated effectively anywhere. The strategic impact exceeded small numbers. 8 men per battalion, perhaps a few thousand across the British Army by 1945, but they achieved disproportionate results. Their ammunition efficiency generated more casualties per round than any other capability. 10,000 to 20,000 times more effective than infantry per bullet. Their intelligence provided critical information. Their psychological effect forced enemy caution. German soldiers learned to respect the threat. They moved carefully, exposed themselves less. Most importantly, they proved the doctrine. Quality over quantity. Thorough training over mass deployment. Professional excellence over expediency. After the war, Western forces adopted British doctrine, not Soviet mass deployment. Professional schools, rigorous selection, extensive training. The United States Marine Corps developed scout sniper programs based on British methods. The British Army continued refining capability. The No. 4T remained in service for decades. Starting in 1970, over 1,000 were converted to 7.62 mm NATO as the L-42A1. The L-42 served until 1993, over 50 years of frontline service. Modern British sniper doctrine traces directly to Hesketh Pritchard and Second World War development. The Sniper Operators course at Brecon continues today. 8 weeks of intensive training, only exceptional candidates pass. Selection criteria remain similar. Training covers the same fundamentals. British sniper dominance rested on one principle: quality over quantity. Modern rifles and night vision improved capability, but the philosophy never changed. Training was ruthless, only 5% passed, and each rifle was hand-selected for accuracy. The result, roughly 1.3 to 1.5 rounds per kill, making British snipers vastly more lethal than regular infantry. Their legacy shaped half a century of Lee-Enfield service and influenced Western doctrine. On June 7, 1944, Sergeant Harry Furness slipped through Normandy's bocage, surviving relentless German fire because skill outmatched volume. One expertly trained specialist proved deadlier than 10 rushed soldiers. British excellence rewrote sniper warfare.